reached up to the sky of stars and caught the red-hot light of the North Star. Opened the earth, walking with blood-soaked feet. She challenged the whip, the gun, the knife. She challenged the fire, pulled from the bodies of slaves, made into laws, prisons, and courts. Screaming white-hot flames and agony, she challenged millions of headhunters, dragging and ripping apart impossible tender moments of time, shipping vessels of history, ancient history, destroying the fabric that
Greetings and welcome back. The Washington Post reports Israeli plan to occupy Gaza brings fear to Palestinians and the families of captives as well. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is set to discuss the details of his plan to occupy all of Gaza with officials this week. There are plans to launch a full-scale occupation of the Strip, details of which they're set to discuss this week, and it's raising questions among security officials about the future and strategy of this military campaign. What does this mean? Isn't this what the Zionist settler colonial government of Israel has been working towards since the 1940s? Isn't this what land developer Donald Trump and his son-in-law Jared Kushner and his family have been visualizing? A Mediterranean seaside enclave? Let's connect some dots and find out.
Connecting the Dots with Dr. Wilmer Leon, where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge.
Welcome to the Connecting the Dots podcast with Dr. Wilmer Leon, and I am Wilmer Leon. With each show, my guests and I provide insight and analysis into current events in the broader historical context in which most of these events take place. Instead of looking at today's headlines, let me quickly address an issue that arose yesterday. And that issue is hypersonic missiles. In the current context, in the recent advance of missile technology, there's been a development in terminology and reference to hypersonic missiles. In today's context, in the parlance or language of today, and to me, this is very important, a hypersonic missile is not simply one that travels faster than the speed of sound. Yes, a Minuteman III travels at 15,000 miles per hour, which is way above the speed of sound. But a Minuteman III is a ballistic missile. What really makes a current hypersonic missile more dangerous is the fact that it can maneuver as compared to non-maneuverable ballistic missiles. What does that mean? The trajectory of a ballistic missile is a parabola, a symmetrical U-shaped curve. And that U-shaped curve follows a predictable trajectory from where it takes off to where it lands. You can launch a missile to intercept an ICBM because it has a set calculable flight path. We know where the missile will be, so you can attempt to intercept it or shoot it down. China, Russia, Iran, they've developed hypersonic cruise missiles. On a maneuverable hypersonic cruise missile, it flies at a lower trajectory and it can adjust to or maneuver around changes of terrain. So you have no idea where it's going to be or what the specific flight path or path entails until it's relatively close to its target. During its terminal phase, by then, it's too late to intercept. So yesterday, in closing, one of the things we discussed was context. And in this context or current parlance, the U.S. does not have hypersonic weapons technology. It has ballistic missiles that can fly at hypersonic speed, but not maneuverable hypersonic cruise missiles. All right, I just wanted to set that record straight. So on today's episode, the issue before us is Donald Trump losing on all fronts? My guest is a leader of the Organization for the Victory of the People based in Guyana. He is an executive member of the Caribbean chapter of the Network for the Defense of Humanity and the Caribbean Pan-African Network, or CPAN. Gerald Perreira, my brother, it's always great to see you again. Welcome back to the show.
Yeah, thank you, Wilma, for having me on your show again.
So it was reported yesterday that Trump is pushing an all or nothing Israel-Hamas ceasefire deal. His special envoy, Steve Witkoff, says, quote, no piecemeal deals. That doesn't work. He says, now we think we have to shift this negotiation to an all or nothing. Everybody comes home. End quote. Gerald, in battle, one tends not to shift away from a winning strategy. If the resistance is forcing the Zionist settler colonial state to shift plans, one would say that the Zionists can't be winning. Your thoughts?
I agree with you. First of all, it is clear over the years, if you follow Donald Trump, since he has been reelected, the man is a consistent liar and a great deceiver. And he's also, apart from being a bully, he's also bluffing. You know, if you look at it carefully, he said that the Houthis, they were begging, they wanted the bombing to stop. We know that was a big lie. We know that aircraft carrier that they had in the area is actually decommissioned. It was hit. The Houthis rained missiles on it, and he did not achieve what he set out to achieve in Yemen against the Ansar Allah or the Houthis. The Houthis are strong. They're a formidable force. And the Houthis are still there firing missiles at Israel. So this here is an attempt to intimidate the resistance, Hamas. So while they're talking about that it will be all or nothing, they're also exerting tremendous pressure on the government of Lebanon to put the military, the Lebanese military, the Lebanese army against Hezbollah. They want Hezbollah to lay down their weapons. So the idea is either they want to press Hezbollah, the Lebanese government, to use the military to enforce the U.S. and Western agenda. Disarm Hezbollah and, make the resistance, allow the resistance, let the resistance collapse. Hezbollah has made it clear. Naim Qasim, the Secretary General, said that Hezbollah is not going to lay down their weapons. They will hold their weapons and they will resist the Zionists as long as there is occupation. Now, the Lebanese government, of course, is divided, and we have Amal, which is a very, I don't want to use the term, but very secular Sunni Islamic organization. They were part of a coalition, parliamentary coalition with Hezbollah, and now they themselves are trying to break away from that coalition. So the idea is to somehow isolate Hezbollah, but Hezbollah is strong on the ground, and Hamas is strong because they keep talking about destroying Hamas, and they have not been able to do that. Not only Hamas, but the resistance, all the resistance forces, whether it's Palestinian Islamic Jihad or the Popular Resistance Committees or the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine or the Democratic Front for the Liberation of Palestine. They've not been able to break the resistance. And Israel they're good at this, hiding the damages that have been done as well as the casualties. A lot of Israeli soldiers have been killed, and there is Israeli soldiers, there's a revolt going on, and it's being shut down. There are many soldiers who don't want to go and fight because they've not been able to achieve the objective. So this thing about destroying Hamas is actually to kill Hamas. What do they mean by destroying Hamas? They mean killing every child, every Palestinian. That's the idea. So we are witnessing the genocide on two scales. The open shooting, the killing of women and children, and genocide too by starvation. So this thing about what Trump is doing, I think it's a bluff. And I think already tremendous pressure is being put on Arab governments. And to take, these people are, they ought to hide their faces. The Zionists allow them to send in aircraft and drop supplies and all of that. But Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, Jordan, all of these countries these are Arab countries with huge armies. And they just sat by and allowed this genocide, this slaughter to continue.
So what's going to, if anything, motivate Mohammed bin Salman? What is going to motivate the King of Jordan? What's his name?
Abdullah.
I'm sorry?
King Abdullah.
Abdullah, thank you. Abdullah and Jordan. What, if anything, would motivate Abdullah or bin Salman to intervene on behalf of the Palestinians? Is there anything that would bring them in to support the resistance?
The sad thing, my brother, I think I pointed this out some time ago.
Mm-hmm.
There's this theological ideology divide with the Sunni and the Shia.
Mm-hmm.
And it is sad that, anyone who studied this thing carefully and you look at it, how could the people who call themselves the followers of mainstream Islam, Sunni Islam, how could you see the Shia Muslims, your brothers, as an enemy, and you prepare to accommodate the Zionists and the imperialists? There is nothing Islamic about this. And I have said this, I don't give a damn who they call about the scholars and all of that, because the Sadducees and those people were scholars. And look what they did. Look the positions they took in support of Rome. I argued years ago that once the Holy Land, the holy cities around Mecca and so is occupied, it is no longer an obligation for Muslims to go to that place to make Hajj, because context is important.
Mm-hmm.
At the time when they said that Hajj is a pillar of Islam, that was a different time. That was during the time of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, and years after. Today, there's different circumstances. It's completely different. The House of Saud is a creation of the British.
Correct.
They've always been tools of the Western imperialism, and they say one thing, they talk to the Arab regimes, they talk one thing to others, to the West. But then behind the doors, they work with the Zionists and they work with the imperialists. And this is what they keep doing. Every one of them, not just the Arab world, but the countries where you have large Muslim population. Let me give you an example. Every year, when the French celebrate Bastille Day, the storming of the Bastille by the people in the French revolutionaries, they keep this huge military parade. And they would invite a head of state and the military of some other country, I guess, to march. They would lead the parade. I think the year before it was India. This year it was Indonesia, the country with the largest Muslim population. And here you had Macron standing up there, and alongside him, the president of Indonesia, and the Indonesian military band and units of the Indonesian army in full battle outfit with the weapons and everything, marching down the Champs-Élysées in France. Marching. And while they're doing that, the Muslims in Palestine and Palestinians, whether you're Muslim or Christian, are being slaughtered. And Islam teaches that the Ummah is one. The Ummah is one. So wherever the Ummah is struggling, it is the duty. It's a moral and religious duty of other Muslims to come to the rescue. We're not seeing that. We're not seeing that. And that is not accidental that the resistance against Zionism in the West has come from Iran, which is predominant, which is Shia, the base of Shia Islam, to the Ansar Allah, the Houthis that are Shia, as well as Hezbollah that is Shia. Hamas and Islamic Jihad are Sunnis, but they understand Hamas and Islamic Jihad has never fell for this nonsense, this divide between Sunni Islam and Shia Islam. But the point I'm making is when we look at the reality, we see that it is predominantly the Sunnis, the branch Sunni Islam, that has taken positions that are against the resistance and are doing more harm not only to the Islamic world, but to all of humanity. I mean, you see it in Syria. You see that the terrorists, those who were brought to power in Syria, they're predominantly, that's the ruling, those who are ruling Syria today are from Sunni Islam, the most subsection of the Wahhabi Salafi. And they are killing Shia Muslims, they're killing Yazidis, they're killing Christians, and they're killing Jews. But they have not fired one shot at the Zionists. So we are seeing this. You see King Abdullah, you see the king, the prince in Saudi Arabia, the king of Morocco, all of these countries. Egypt has a huge army, and Egypt has not lifted a finger to help the resistance. But Egypt is more interested in having a war with Ethiopia over the water, the way the water flows in the Nile, right? Also to go to war with Ethiopia. That is what they're trying to do, instead of going after the Zionists. And what is crystal clear when you listen to the far-right National Security Minister, Itamar Ben-Gvir. These guys are downright fascists. Downright fascists. And, you know, there's a Creole saying in the Caribbean, mouth open, story jump out. You know, it's on Friday. what he's saying is you listen to him, and then you realize, you revisit the Oslo Accords, Oslo 1 and 2, and you know that all these years, the Zionist apartheid state of Israel and the Americans were cunning. They were fooling the Palestinians. They had no intention of giving any sort of self-determination to the Palestinian people and the recognition and to establish the recognition of the two-state solution. No. So they were playing this all along. Just deceive the world and deceive, because the Zionist project is to expand, and we're seeing it openly today, to occupy Gaza and to push further and further. And they're being supported and enabled by the United States. And I think we need to understand, that what we are seeing, what Trump is doing, what you're seeing with Trump, is the open and naked version of fascism. Good.
So to that point, you've got Macron a couple of days ago, along with Spain, and so France and Spain. I think Britain chimed in on this, that they're going to make a proposal when the UN Security Council, when the General Assembly meets in New York in September, to recognize a Palestinian state. How do we square that with Netanyahu now saying we're going into Gaza full blast, and Donald Trump saying go ahead and do it? And you also have Macron saying we're working this through Abbas. They're working it through
Fatah, the Palestinian Authority.
Exactly. Which really doesn't control anything, and nobody listens to Abbas. How do you square those circles?
Well, I think the Europeans say one thing, and then you look at what they're doing on the ground. For example, in the UK, people are being criminalized. People their doors are being kicked down. To carry a placard saying that it's genocide in Gaza, you're being persecuted. Palestine, to carry a Palestine flag, it's an offense. The police are after you. So you listen to Lamy, who has a Guyanese roots, incident roots from Guyana. And what a shame. Anyhow, and you listen to what they're saying. They're saying this, that what they're going to, they're taking it to the United Nations, and they're going to put forward, support the whole position of the two-state solution and all of that. We've been hearing that. It's just deception. But look at what they are doing on the ground. I mean, Starman, all of them, they're supporting Israel. They're saying one thing and they're doing something else. And I think it's just the Europeans are just trying to carry a line different to the Americans. But the Israelis are not, the Zionist state is not paying too much attention to the Europeans. So at the end of the day, I think, and the Europeans talking to Fatah, Fatah has outlived itself. Fatah it's irrelevant. Fatah just went along with a lot of things. And that is why, if you go back to the early days, I think somewhere in the 90s, there was a break in Fatah, where there's a group called the Steadfast Front, led by Abu Musa and others, who broke away. And there were different factions. And even they took up positions that even Arafat did not agree, and the rest, people believe that Yasser Arafat, including his wife, believed that Arafat was poisoned. And when you look, a lot of the leadership of Fatah the leadership extremely corrupt, and they have a lot of money in Western banks.
Mm-hmm.
And there are cases of where people from Fatah have companies, businesses that have business arrangement with the Zionist state. And the Hamas and other groups have pointed this out. So Fatah has no legitimacy. Hamas ran in the election and won overwhelmingly, defeated Fatah.
Mm-hmm.
And then Fatah resorted to arms, and then Hamas pushed them out of that area. So yeah.
To your point about
Gaza.
To your point about Macron's statement,
yeah,
and then comparing Macron's statement to the activities on the ground, looking at the power of the rhetoric and understanding that Israel doesn't tolerate any deviation from the dominant narrative.
Yeah.
From a symbolic perspective, if France goes before the General Assembly and puts forth a resolution to recognize Palestine, and I understand the rhetoric versus the reality.
Yeah.
I got it. But looking at how this anti-Zionist sentiment is growing, would a resolution of that nature, especially one that was supported by other European countries, would that have some symbolic value, or is it just summarily a waste of time?
A lot of organizations and people have individual scholars and so on, organizations have been lashing the French and this whole thing about you talk about liberty, equality, and fraternity and all of that. Mm-hmm. That's your tradition and all of that, and what is happening.
Mm-hmm. So
France likes to invoke that tradition. That's what they talk about. And France has realized that the French government realized that there is a growing, not only in France, I mean, you only look at what happened in Australia a couple of days ago.
Mm-hmm.
That march across the Sydney Bridge, 90,000 people. And there are huge demonstrations in Berlin and the UK. So the French are saying, hey, we got to move, we have to do something. But when it goes to the UN, Israel and the United States, France is symbolic, as you said.
Right.
France is going to put it out there, but Israel is going to ignore it, and America's
going to kill it.
America's going to kill it. So, and then the French will say, well, you can't say, at least we put it out there, and it's business as usual. But the thing about it is, I think what we are witnessing ever since the genocide started in Gaza is this liberal democracy, this liberal democratic arrangement, all this the talk about liberal democracy,
mm-hmm.
The right to freedom of expression, assembly, it has collapsed. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we who studied it for years know that it's a con, it's bogus, because liberal democracy is in itself a contradiction.
Mm-hmm.
Having said that, I said that Trump and what you're seeing in the United States is a naked fascism.
Mm-hmm.
Because people think that fascism, the minute you said fascism, Hitler comes to mind and Mussolini. We pointed this out. But, I was rereading the African-American revolutionary George Jackson's book,
mm-hmm.
Blood in My Eye,
mm-hmm.
which came out in the early 70s, 71. I was in the high school in this 5th or 6th form. And I read that book. And he said something, because I'm going to quote what he said, because remember, the classical Marxists in the Communist Party of the United States and all of that, they were saying that fascism is a reaction to the crisis of monopoly capitalism and so. That was their argument. And they never saw America as fascist, right? Because they had a very mechanistic way of looking at things. But Jackson said, and he was no academic, so they would tend to dismiss him. And this is what he said, I quote. He said, "We will never have a complete definition of fascism because it is in constant motion, showing a new face to fit any particular set of problems that arise to threaten the predominance of the traditionalist capitalist ruling class." Now, if you go back and you look, you examine the man, the Italian philosopher who developed this whole concept of fascism, Giovanni Gentile. He is the man who laid the philosophical foundations for fascism. And the root, he returned to what is called Caesarism or Caesarism, which goes back to Rome. So fascism is something been around a long time.
Right.
And when you really understand, so when Hitler was looking at what King Leopold was doing in Belgium and what the American settlers did when they committed genocide against the indigenous people, what Columbus did in the Americas, so many years after his arrival, more than 50 million indigenous people were wiped out. As Jan Carew, the great Caribbean scholar from Guyana, pointed out in Christopher Columbus and the Rape of Paradise. So what Hitler was doing was a continuation of what other Europeans and white Anglo-Saxon nations were doing. So fascism has always been a part of the US political system. And it had the soft face and the harsh face. And it depends as times go on and the contradictions and the pressures and so, and you see where, because no ruling class is a monolith. The ruling classes have their disagreements and so. But the two major parties in the United States are crystal clear on their position when it comes to dealing with the so-called backyard, the Caribbean and Latin and the Americas, or when they're dealing with Africa, Asia, and the so-called Middle East, right? And that's to maintain the hegemony. That is what it's all about. And we have seen the history, if you look at the history of the United States government, various US governments, regimes, have worked with neo-Nazis. They worked with the Nazis. George Bush's grandfather was a banker for the Nazis. Look at Henry Ford, Charles Lindbergh, and all those guys, and there are many more. Good. And you will see that the United States worked with neo-Nazi groups in South America, in Europe, with the Bologna train bombing, and they've worked with Islamic heretical groups to destabilize and overthrow revolutionary nationalist regimes. And, they're doing it. France, who's talking about going to the United Nations to make some resolution on the two-state solution of these days. France is working with heretical Islamic groups, France and other Western countries, to destabilize the revolutionary-oriented governments of the Sahel region. Right? There is well-documented evidence that fighters from Syria and fighters from parts of Libya who went to cross into that area are operating in the Sahel region, right? They're going after the Ibrahim Traoré in Burkina Faso. So this thing is interconnected. It's interconnected, and these people are deceivers. They're deceivers. They're good at deceiving the world. But we understand. We know their history. We've studied it, and we know that, as Kwame Ture said, the imperialists don't lie sometimes. They lie all the time.
All the time. I want to J.R. Shield, thank you for that $10 super sticker. And I want to quickly hit on this point related to fascism, because to your point, there are those that will tend to see fascism as static.
Correct.
And they see it started with World War I, ended with it started in Italy with Mussolini, and
yes,
and ended with Hitler.
Yeah.
Which is why I tend to try to not necessarily, for example, people will say Donald Trump is a fascist.
Yeah.
Which I believe he is.
Yes.
But instead of getting caught up in that discussion, let's just look at the primary elements of it.
Yes.
And so if you look at the primary elements of it, extreme nationalism, for example, hence Make America Great Again.
That's right.
They believe in the supremacy of certain groups of people, whether it's based on race, whether it's based on religion, ethnicity, the supremacy over the nation over the individual.
That's right.
Overthrowing existing systems of government. Hence, Steve Bannon told us the deconstruction of the administrative state.
Yeah.
That's what happened in Brazil with Bolsonaro. That's what's happening here in the United States.
Yeah.
The relationship with the business interests and the use of militarism so you don't have to get caught up in this binary discussion about, is Donald Trump a fascist or not? If it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck and it has feathers, damn it, it's a duck.
You're right. Well said. Well said. You're right. That's how we have to look. Right. I mean, this whole thing about Make America Great Again, that's what Mussolini was talking about. Mussolini was to return to the glory of the empire, the Roman Empire.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that was what Giovanni Genta was talking about. And this thing about the leader, you know, the maximum leader that embodies the will of the people and the state above the individual and all of that. You're seeing it. But you know, for years, there have been various fascist groups in the United States, apart from Lincoln Rockwell neo-Nazi party.
Mm-hmm.
You had the Silver Shirts, led by a man named James Pelly. You had the Silver Shirts,
mm-hmm.
you know, and there were many groups. This man, Carter Wilson, the Liberty Lobby,
mm-hmm.
and those groups, they've been around a long time. There were many of these groups. And you have the war, the White Aryan Resistance. You have the Patriotic Front now. And you have a proliferation. You have so many groups now. And those are the people that provide the material. Those are the that drive their Trump's agenda. You know, those are the people.
Right.
Yeah. And this thing against black and brown and all of that. And, you know, you've seen it.
Carol Asbaram, a member of the Connecting the Dots Club. We get enough news about Palestine. We need more African news with African scholars as presenters. Point well made. Point taken.
Yeah.
And thank you. We will take that under advisement. Oh shoot! Hang on one second here. You mentioned Smotrich, and well, just really quickly before we get to Smotrich, the release of Georges Abdullah, the Lebanese militant that was released from a French prison last week or maybe 10 days ago.
Yes.
Your thoughts on I found it interesting that he was released, and then again, Macron talks about recognizing a Palestinian state. Do you think that those things were connected, and the significance of the release of Georgia?
Yeah, definitely they're connected, and it's again, you have to watch and see, but it's that he spent some time, and I just think it's international.
40 years, I think he was in prison.
That's right, a very long time. And that's just another international public relations stunt by the French. That's what I believe. But I just want to say something, brother, because I noticed there was a friendly advice given to you there about get the African scholars and talking about Africa. And we can't separate what is happening in Palestine and so on in Africa. Let me tell you why. Look at what happened in the Congo, the Democratic Republic of Congo. The Rwanda is supporting the armed groups in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And instead of these two countries, instead of the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda getting together with representatives of the African Union to straighten out an African issue, an African problem, the two of them went to Donald Trump. They went to Donald Trump. That's like, you know what I mean? They went to Donald Trump, and Donald Trump told them, oh, you know, what you have to say, then you go back there and say, is this for real? African problems must be solved by African leaders and the people of Africa. But here you had two African leaders going to Trump, and Trump treated them. He even said to one leader, you speak good English. Where did you learn your English? I mean, look how our leaders, you know, and that's why they would never like the Gaddafis and the Mugabes, because whatever mistakes Robert Mugabe made, Robert Mugabe was a staunch anti-imperialist.
Correct.
He was a staunch, in fact, he was the first leader to offer Gaddafi military assistance. He said, we can send troops to help you. Yes, he did. So, and you have others. But going to Trump, and we still have the American military bases in Africa. But a lot of African scholars, good, and we have found this out. There is a fake Pan-Africanism. There are those who attempted to neo-colonialize Pan-Africanism. Do you know we have some Pan-African organizations that are funded quietly by the Soros Foundation?
Yes. Well, I think you said funded. I would say co-opted.
Yes, co-opted, and they're getting money from them.
Right.
You know. So when we speak of Pan-Africanism, we talk about revolutionary Pan-Africanism. We are coming in the tradition of people like Kwame Nkrumah, Ahmed Sekou Toure, Kwame Toure, Ahmed Ben Bella, and those people, Modi Bokito and Lumumba. That's our Pan-Africanism. It's not the Pan-Africanism of Paul Kagame or Museveni or Mobutu and those neo-colonial stooges.
What organizations today would you say are being so-called Pan-African organizations are being funded by Soros?
I attended a meeting. We had 3 years ago we had a meeting in the Caribbean, and an organ, an arm of the AU participated. And it was on the last day we found out that the Soros Foundation was involved in this thing, right? And there is a global, what you call a global Pan-African movement. The secretariat is based in Kampala, but Kampala wants to control it. And we're saying that no government should control the Pan-African movement or the Pan-African calling of Pan-African congresses. So we are saying that the next 8th Pan-African Congress should be held in Ouagadougou in Burkina, in solidarity with those. So that is what we are pushing for. But the Global Pan-African Movement Secretariat that is based in Kampala, they don't want to let go. And that is being controlled by Museveni and his surrogates.
Got you.
Yeah.
Got you. Final point on Palestine, and that is because I think this has a much broader implication as it relates to Islam. Ben Gvir raids the Al-Aqsa Mosque. And for those that don't know, that's the third holiest site in Islam, which draws tens of thousands of pilgrims from all over the world every year, and has been a symbol of Palestinian resistance. And Ben Gvir, I think the number I read was 100 settlers, stormed the mosque and danced and did all kinds of, basically tried to desecrate the holy site.
Yeah. Yes, well, you know, I read about it, I saw it, and as you said, that's considered, it's a very it's part of, you know, it's a holy shrine.
Mm-hmm.
And to do that, and the Arab countries and the Islamic countries just stand by and did nothing, is a serious indictment of those countries. And I think the people across the region are going to put tremendous pressure on the regimes. But what is interesting is, you know, we have this so-called Arab Spring,
mm-hmm.
where one person set themselves alight in Tunis, and you know the rest, what happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if that was really a case, just one person died, and here, over 60,000, 65,000, 60 to 65,000 people have died. And where is this Arab Spring?
Mm-hmm.
Where is it? I mean, you would expect that, right? But you're not seeing it. You're seeing demonstrations and all of that. So many of these Arab regimes are doing deals behind the doors with the Zionists and the Americans, but I don't think it's going to last long. I think we're going to see popular revolt very soon against those
that was my next question, which is, and you just answered it, but I'll ask it anyway, that a move a move such as this to desecrate such a holy site, to me, transcends leadership and takes it right to the root, right to the street of the people of the religion. Correct. And so, irrespective of what leadership is, and we might find ourselves with folks following the adage, "There go the people, I must lead them." That this thing could escalate beyond the control of Mohammed bin Salman, or any of the other so-called leaders of the Arab world.
Yeah. And the Saudis and many of these Gulf states, they are very repressive.
And fragile at the same time.
Yeah. They're very repressive. And if you look at, for example, the role that a number of these countries, the Gulf states, played in the overthrow of the Libyan Jamahiriya,
mm-hmm.
you know, and I did point it out on your program that at first when Gaddafi said, "I'm fighting Al-Qaeda," some people didn't take him seriously, but he was fighting Al-Qaeda, and some of those Gulf states airlifted fighters. The CIA, long before they went to the UN, the CIA was in the ground. British intelligence was in the ground.
A lot of folks don't realize Arabs did not like Gaddafi.
They did not.
Gaddafi saw himself as an African.
Correct. That's right. Because he said that the Arabs in Africa, in North Africa, must have formed their Africanity.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't see yourself as African, then you should go somewhere else and live and let Africa be for Africans from north to south. That's what he said.
Mm-hmm.
And he told, when he attended the Arab Summit, he told some of them, he said up to today, he apologized for the trade slavery that some of the Arab communities participated in, because there was no nation state that participated in. And he told some of them, he said, up to today, many of you are still treating Africans like they're enslaved. He told them that, and the hall was silent. So they didn't like him. He was just straight up, straightforward. Yeah, and then of course you saw key figures in his in Gaddafi's office were people like a number of them were what you call the original Libyans, black Libyans, and you saw his bodyguards, the female bodyguards, right? The head of that unit was a black Libyan woman. So you know, and he was clear about that. He was clear. So they were happy to get rid of him because they didn't like this whole thing about the golden dinar, one currency, one army, and all of that. Good. And what is interesting too, brother, because we had this thing about Africa, you know, isn't it interesting that Qatar, after the Democratic Republic of Congo and the Rwandan the representatives of the DRC and Rwanda met with Trump, Qatar held a meeting with them, with the representatives of those two countries, and they call it something, they take some meeting of documentation, something. But why is Qatar meddling and getting involved in the DRC and with Rwanda?
Because of its close ties to the United States.
Yeah, and Qatar is very much like Turkey, interested in the resources, the gold, the diamond, the gas, and the oil in that area. And Qatar is punching out of his league because
similar to Ukraine. It is operating as a United States proxy.
That's right.
Similar to Ukraine.
Yeah, that's right. So that's what is going on. So you have that, and then you had the row between Saudi Arabia and Qatar. You remember? Then there was some level of sanctions against Qatar. Saudi Arabia accused Qatar of sponsoring terrorism, and Trump, when he was in there first time in the White, he said, "Qatar, are you sponsoring terrorism?" Qatar said, "No."
No.
Yeah, and then the whole thing blew over, and the rest, the sanctions went on, and life returned. This is what they do. So the serious leaders, the ones that got the governments that are committed to radical transformation of their economies and society, they become the targets of the Zionists and the imperialists and these heretical Islamic groups that are used as foot soldiers by the Zionists and the Western powers.
I mentioned at the top, I asked the question, is Donald Trump losing on all fronts? And I want to shift quickly to Ukraine. Last week, or maybe 10 days ago, Trump gave Russia a 50-day deadline that to make tremendous progress in ending the war. That got ignored. Last Monday, he said, "Oh, well, I'm not doing 50 now. I'm tired of this. I'm going down to 10." And then when he says that, what was Russia's response? Well, they sent Kinzhal hypersonic missiles into Ukraine, into Kiev.
Yes.
So it seems as though that's another front that Donald Trump is losing the argument on.
Yeah, that's what he's doing, bluffing. For example, Brazil is talking. Lula is speaking about the de-dollarization and the BRICS, and he's going to talk about sanctioning, put it on Brazil and on India. I don't think that Trump is really in touch with the shifting reality of the world. I don't think he is, and he has these representatives. These people are going to different areas, but I think what Trump intention is, he was hoping that the war with Ukraine and Russia would come to an end, and so he could focus on China.
But wait a minute, just really quickly.
Yeah,
he was hoping that the war between Ukraine and Russia would come to an end on his terms.
On his terms, correct.
Because Putin has been trying to end this thing since it started.
That's right.
And the U.S. won't listen.
They won't listen. They wouldn't listen, so he's frustrated because if you listen to the Australian Prime Minister, you know, Australia just stood up to him, and Australia is not prepared under this Prime Minister to fall for this thing about building up a thing against China, because there are other countries they're roping in. But Trump idea, he's going after China and governments that are dealing in the Caribbean, governments that have strong economic relations with the Chinese. Rubio came to Guyana, and it was the only thing left for him to say was to tell us, stop doing any business with the Chinese, you know. And
so let me ask you, what in terms of let's bring it home literally to you in Guyana. You've got these conflicts going on with Brazil, with Venezuela. These territorial conflicts going on. Again, Rubio Lil Marco was there. So politically, what's happening in Guyana as we speak?
Well, you know, on the issue, for example, of Palestine, the CARICOM countries, Belize is the only one that has broken complete ties with the state of Israel. The others are still, they come up at the UN, they vote, they condemn, but they're still doing, they still have relations with Israel. Only Belize has broken ranks. The other thing is that Venezuela, you know, we have some of our political leaders and political analysts. They're pushing this line that Maduro wants to invade Guyana, and that the US will stand with Guyana, you know. But I have always pointed out that if you look at our territorial dispute, you will see that the Americans have always stood in Venezuela corner from a historically. And the US shift positions depending on which government is in power, whether it's that they like or don't like. But what is interesting is those who are saying, oh, that the US should come in and US will fight for help us and all that. Trump quietly signed off for Chevron to do business in Venezuela. So people are saying, well, what? I mean, Trump is take off on Chevron to do business in Venezuela. Is this the Trump that is going to the Americans that are going for fight for Guyana? No, and then one of them said, well, you know, the Americans, they put their interest first. When did they know that? When did they learn that? You know, I do not believe, and I've always argued it, Venezuela under Maduro has no interest in invading Guyana. And they will not do it. Because to do that is suicidal. Right? I mean, Venezuela was under sanctions for years. It damaged the economy. Why would Venezuela want to invade Guyana when that's what the US would love? So they can put the military base permanently and bomb the hell out of Venezuela, and then occupy the oil fields like they did in Syria. Occupy the oil fields, install a puppet regime, occupy the oil fields and the oil out to the sea in Venezuela and in Guyana, and tell the Guyana government, well, we have to stay here. And nobody's going. So, you know, that is what, you know, and the thing is, Brother Wilmer, is our leaders don't stand up to the Western powers. They're actually scared of them. You know, when President Ali, the president of Guyana, when Prime Minister Ralph Gonzalez from St. Vincent the Grenadines and the Prime Minister Skerrit of Dominica, they were bringing President Ali of Guyana and President Maduro bring them together for the talks in Grenada, in St. Vincent. And tremendous pressure was put on those two prime ministers not to bring off those talks. And President Ali the ink didn't sign properly on those documents that a British warship was headed to Guyana. You know, that sends a different message. So I said we were commemorating the emancipation African emancipation on Friday, and we had a booth with our flag flying high. You could have seen it and everything. And the Prime Minister came in, and I told him, I said, you are aware. I said, both of us are aware that in Guyana, the government and the main opposition and all the political parliamentary parties, you're dictated to by the Western powers. Whatever the Western powers tell you, you go along with it. He said nothing. All he kept saying to me was, the struggle continues. The struggle continues. And I said, yes, indeed. And we are carrying the struggle forward from where our ancestors left off in order to achieve complete liberation and real true emancipation. Because emancipation, when our ancestors walked off the plantation, that was a physical aspect of emancipation, the chains. But Cartwright Davis, a great Caribbean theologian, wrote a book called Emancipation Still Coming.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what Marley spoke about when he spoke about emancipate yourself from mental slavery.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes with the process of decolonization, decolonizing our educational curriculum. It's still very Eurocentric. It's Eurocentric. You know, we still have a lot of nonsense. We still have, like, basic, I just want to get you, you know, and I've stood up against this. You refer to the mayor of the city as his worship and his lordship. What is worshipful but any damn human being?
Mm-hmm.
Is worship the mayor. You go before the judge, your lordship. You know, these are things, and people who are meant to be Christians and who are meant to be Muslims indulge in this type of thing. You know, you go and these are some of the things we talk about, and they're serious.
And people don't really understand the power, the vestiges of the colonial mindset.
Correct.
And the difference between flag independence
and real independence. That's right.
There you go.
Right.
And that language plays a role in furthering a mindset and a narrative you're still a subject to another power.
That's right. Well, that's what Walter Rodney, the great revolutionary scholar historian, said. Walter Rodney referred to the type of independence we obtained in the Caribbean as briefcase independence.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We call it flag and anthem independence.
Right.
We have our own flag, anthem, and everything, but we don't have economic independence. And that's what Kwame Nkrumah recognized when he wrote the book Neocolonialism, the Last Stage of Imperialism. And in Guyana, one form is born to recognize that your political independence is meaningless if you don't have economic independence. So we don't have anything that is substantial. So we have, the American police force, there are American police in Guyana who are here to train the police and supervise the elections.
Oh, I didn't know that.
We are meant to be, yeah. And the political parties, they have to meet with the representative of the U.S. Embassy. They met with the U.S. Ambassador, the British High Commissioner, to explain their position on the LGBTQA and all of that to be endorsed, you know. And this is what goes on, you know. This is what. And in October, we will be commemorating, brother, the anniversary of the Cubana bombing that took place in 1976. We'll be commemorating it, so many years of it. Yeah, because we lost 11 Guyanese and the Cubans died in it. And that, you know, that the intellectual authors of that dastardly act were aided and abetted by intelligence agencies of the United States.
Final point here. Again, Carol Asbaram, thank you for that super sticker, Carol. And thank you, Carol, for your call into my Sirius XM show on Saturday. Greatly appreciate that. Trump wants Australia and Japan to form ties with him against China, South Korea being a U.S. There it is. Tody is already on the deal. Quickly, your thoughts there.
That person is right. That is what he's pushing for. I think he's also trying to rope in the Philippines. Because, you know, there's some disparately a number of islands around there that is being contested at fisher waters when it's part to China. Vietnam and Philippines, different nations in that area have claimed that area. But that is what he's pushing for. Because Trump is very, you see the thing about the Chinese, as you're aware, the Chinese played the West to their own game.
Mm-hmm.
And the opening up on the Deng Xiaoping, he said, look, we have to get this technical know-how, the technology and everything. Mm-hmm. And they made sure that strategic sectors of the economy, land and everything, you can't buy and sell land in China. The Communist Party leads the thing, drives China. So today, I mean, China gives, like Barbados, the economic assistance that China provides to Barbados. The Barbados Prime Minister, Mia Mottley, said we've never had in our history that type of arrangement. And when the Chinese give you assistance, they don't tell you where the money must go, how to spend it. The West bring all these conditionalities. They did it to Ghana. They bring in the economic advisors, and then you have to turn around out of that money and pay these same people. So you're always digging a hole to fill a hole. Yeah.
Gerald Perreira, as always, my brother, thank you so much for, as you said earlier, the struggle continues.
It does. Yeah, the struggle continues.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Anytime, brother. Welcome. And as I always say, keep up the great work you're doing. It's excellent. And a lot of people go to our site and they follow. There's a lot of people in Guyana who are following you and across the Caribbean. So we send out this and they will see it.
My brother, thank you very much.
Yes.
Look forward to having you back. Thank you all so much for listening to the Connecting the Dots podcast with me, Dr. Wilmer Leon. New episode tomorrow. Colonel Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson will join us tomorrow. We got those issues worked out. Please follow and subscribe, leave a review, share the show. Follow us on social media. All the links are below in the show description. And remember that this is where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge. Talk without analysis is just chatter, and we don't chatter here on Connecting the Dots. See y'all tomorrow. Until then, I am Dr. Wilmer Leon. Have a wonderful, blessed remainder of your day. Peace. I'm out.
Connecting the Dots with Dr. Wilmer Leon, where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge.